We're now live on Vimeo, Facebook, LinkedIn, and all 3 YouTubes.
Wow,
according
awesome.
to the computer.
Sweet. Well, what's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in for episode number 35 of the Tattoo Weekly with myself, Jake Meeks, and Gabe Ripley. So today's episode number 35. Like I said, you guys haven't seen us for a couple weeks since our Health City episode, which was a lot of fun. We'll go over some of our stuff and some of our feedback from there. We also have a few other stories to cover. Gentlemen, do you want to go through a quick intro for those who are just tuning in?
Hit it, Gabe.
Oh, hey, I'm Gabe Ripley from TattooNow and Reinventing the Tattoo, and I love helping connect tattooers and enthusiasts and tattooers and suppliers. And I just I like helping connect people, and reinventing is a great way to do that. And the show's fun to do every Monday to do the same.
Nice. Yeah. I'm Jake of the Fireside Tattoo Network, where we're always trying to help tattooers become better problem solvers and tattoo collectors to make better educated decisions whenever they're choosing a tattoo artist. You can find us at firesidetattoo.com or right here on YouTube, where we put out new content, semi-regularly.
Yeah, semi-regularly, every Monday at least.
Every Monday at least.
Yeah, you guys have some really cool stuff coming up. Also, I'm Lauren from Reinventing the Tattoo and Raw Pigments. I'm here to just kind of connect artists and represent some pretty cool tattoo inks. And with that, I will go ahead and roll our clip.
Boom.
I just want to know how Nick Baxter gets a free plug in our intro every week. He doesn't pay for that. He doesn't.
Anybody paying attention is going to check it out on Sunday night at 11.
That's right. Hey, I saw, by the way, that Lauren, I guess you asked our helper Kyle to put together a new kind of logo or something, and he sent a few thumbnail sketches over of for an intro that's like a globe with a tattoo machine kind of like orbiting around the globe. And I was like, it was, they were rough sketches, but it's like, that'd be cool to like do it as a weekend update kind of news thing. So we should definitely, we should like change
a full 3D animated After Effects.
Yeah, exactly.
Wizardry.
Surely
cool.
Someone can
Kyle
do
has
that.
been a really cool person to get to know through Reinventing. He's come a long way in the last, year or so that we've known him.
Yeah, absolutely. He's I just met him for the first time in Jiminy Peak last October, and he seems like, at least to me, seems like he's come out of his shell a lot in that period of time.
Yeah. Keep your eyes on him, everybody who's watching. He's in the right crowd, that's for sure. If I was in that crowd when I was 22, I think I'd be blessed.
Yeah.
He said the first artist he met in the industry knew of in the industry was Guy Aitchison.
Oh yeah, and then he ends up with getting to pick Guy's brain through his apprenticeship. That's pretty exciting for him.
To be clear, though, he's not in an apprenticeship. He is an apprentice hopeful.
But he's still getting assignments. He's getting from Guy. He's getting to turn in assignments and get feedback on his drawings. So that's it's a pretty big deal.
Once a week, there's like a 20-minute meeting where Guy is guiding him and critiquing his portfolio, separate of the Monday night exercises. And Kyle comes in on probably 2 streams a week too. So if there was anybody that's putting himself in a great position to get that apprenticeship, and then he moved out. He moved across country to put himself
to Columbus. That's right.
Other opportunities, and Yeah, his main goal is going to maybe it's from what the fuck do I know, but mostly just keeping his head about him, right? I mean, seems to be so far, but get 10 years, and again, everyone expects kind of there are great expectations from him too. Like he can't just be a regular tattooer; he's got to be like a badass tattooer.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely
It's
right.
a lot of pressure.
He's got to step it up. He's under a lot of pressure when he finally gets that apprenticeship. And then think about who his actual mentor, whoever actually ends up apprenticing him, has to follow, guy helping him draw for the last year and a half. So that's a lot of pressure on whoever his mentor is. Because if I'm Kyle and I don't turn out to be that good, I'm blaming my mentor. I'm going to be like, look, guy set me up for success and you really dropped the ball.
Yeah, I wonder where it'll end up. Being in Columbus is a great spot. It's kind of an art hub of the Midwest, in my opinion.
Yeah. Speaking of Columbus, that was the last time we all put this show together a couple of weeks ago live in Columbus. I don't know that it was one of our strongest shows, but it's always tough at conventions. I don't know why you leave those things. They're so much fun, but man, I'm drained so hard after I leave. I think it's trying to keep the face on for like everyone that I meet and come in contact with, and always be smiling and cheery and like inquisitive and all that kind of stuff you have to be. And you like get back, you get home and you're like, holy crap, why do I do that? It's exhausting.
Let's see. I have this is the Reinventing the Tattoo podcast. And you'll see here live from Hell City, Columbus, Tattoo Weekly number 34.
All right.
We
That's
got this
cool.
up pretty quick. Completely unedited with a very slim description.
Nice.
But,
Nice.
That's okay. We're working on things slowly but surely.
We
It's
did.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jake, for making it, or both of you for making it happen.
Yeah, we had a guest for anyone who didn't catch it. We had Bruno. Where's Bruno Tattoo out of Florida?
He's in Florida. Yep.
Yeah.
Outside of Miami.
Yeah, he did some. So he sat down with us for a few minutes, and I got to see a couple of tattoos. Actually, we were talking about Kyle. I saw a tattoo that Bruno did on Kyle in Hell City that was really nice and clean. And that may be the first tattoo I've seen of Bruno's. I've met him a time or two, but I've never seen his work. So,
you know what? I'm fired up right now.
Oh, do you have a?
I do.
Nice.
Bruno is the host of Hablemos de Arte, and that went on, I think, for 9 episodes, 3 hours apiece. So I would recommend checking out some of that. He's affiliated with some really great artists, and his own portfolio is incredible.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what he did on Kyle.
That was the piece. Yeah, and it was kind of a last second, like they weren't really planning. Kyle wasn't planning to get tattooed, and they put that together, and it turned out really, really clean, super saturated. All the blends were nice, the lines were nice. That's a different animal. It's one thing to pull off super clean tattoos in your home studio. It's a different thing to do it at a convention. There's just so many distractions.
A lot of distractions.
Yeah.
Tons. And then Bart Andrew. Well, yeah, let's look at some more of Bruno's work here.
Yeah.
Looks like this one's a work in progress. But,
it looks nice. Speaking of distractions, I'll tell you who had no distractions. Lauren, is the guys that were tattooing at the Raw booth that all weekend. Man, those guys are workhorses. What are their names again? I met them, but I forget.
Tony, and we actually had 3 artists. We had Tony, Ray, and Fortunato Tattoo. And all of those guys, they haven't really been traveling the circuit in the United States as long. So I think that they just come and that's what they do. It's if you point right into the middle, we have a video of Tony with that piece that he worked on.
Yeah, that piece right there is what he worked on. I saw that right after he finished the piece up, and he did that for all 3 days, right? All 3, yeah. It was pretty remarkable. Did he take best of show with that?
The best of show was selected a little bit differently. So he took Tattoo of the Day on
Tattoo of the Day
Sunday. Yeah.
Okay.
The best of show was kind of like an accumulative of awards and kind of like a house pick, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah, gotcha. Which went to Gabe Londas. So.
Okay, yeah. Gabe Londas is. I think he's just got dibs on best of show at Hell City from just indefinitely. I think he's probably won best of show 3 or 4 years in a row. It seems like.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this was cool for Tony because Tony is from Brazil, so this type of. He's got truly humble beginnings. I've said it time and time again, but for them to come like this, it was so meaningful to him and his family and his extended family. So I was, very, very proud of that. His client was a badass too. His client sat there
3 days, no doubt. Yeah, I clicked on it. I was going to follow him after that, and Gabe, go back to where he just were. I clicked on his profile. Like Tony's got some work to do on his social media.
Maybe I tagged it wrong, but yeah, he's
maybe.
Yeah, definitely not that guy.
Okay, that's good to know. Like, Tony, come on, man, you can't do tattoos like that and then just put a selfie of yourself on the farm.
Yeah, no, he's got a pretty strong following that he's built over several years. He's been tattooing for a long time. Actually, do you guys remember the George Lunge guy that went with us? And I think I showed you some of his work, Gabe, with that leg sleeve and arm sleeve, and he'd gone to separate competitions with us. And he actually he learned from Tony in Brazil.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So yeah.
And the other interview was Bart Andrews.
No, he didn't come on.
Oh,
no, he.
Fawn came on.
Fawn came on. That's right.
Yep. Yeah, Fawn had a really good idea for doing the tattoo collecting 101 and really got into the awards. So throughout the whole weekend they were streaming live, and it was pretty incredible. Yeah. She was talking about that, trying to get in and do live streams of all the awards all weekend. I never got to see what it actually looked like, or if they got good footage of it or not. Did you see it? They got quite a bit of stuff.
Nice.
We'll be in the Indianapolis this weekend at the Indie Tattoo Expo doing kind of the same. So you guys can keep an eye on either Raw Pigments or Fawn or Tattoo Collecting 101 to see the live stuff, which is really cool. I mean, I think that's kind of a newer concept, to be honest, with first of all, streaming is new, but having the videos on stage, getting in there was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Newish,
you're right. Yeah. Done right or not?
Oh, that's a nice piece.
Right.
Yeah.
She said they were inspired by, I think she spoke to us about like a beta fish tail for that green, kind of like that material.
Yeah, it looks really nice. We've got a question I think might be a good talking point from Adam Ugly. Having trouble getting a good filming setup for tattooing and drawing. Any recommendations? I want to get a multiple camera setup, but I'm not sure where to start. You guys are filming. I can tell you what I do at my station, but do you guys have any simple beginner kind of setups?
I would say that the first thing would be, I guess, the content usually is the most important thing. So if you know that you have the good content, good lighting. So for me, I use something called a little capture card. There's either like a Cam Link or an Elgato, little box. And I use that and I connect my DSLR with that to my computer. And that way I can actually stream. So there's a different concept in whether or not you're going to film or you're going to stream. Kind of decide, if you want to be going live, that's a huge rabbit hole. But if you want to film and post later, it's a little bit different. But for lightings, I think if you get a nice, like either a flat LED or, like a Godox seems pretty common. But get more than one and then play with it.
Microphones, lighting.
Lighting.
Like with everything, the more you dork out on it, the better it'll be. But it doesn't have to be crazy. It's great because you could start off by like having a webcam that's pointing at the right thing, on a well-lit booth, and it could be pretty cool and work, On the other hand, like a DSLR and another camera backup with a lavalier on you, and then an ambient one with it going to a.
You can go deep as you want with it. I think we all three kind of have. I definitely have over the years, but I think if you're just if you're not sure what you're going to do, I would film and post later. If you're doing it for social and stuff, I would film and post later to start, because it's a lot more forgiving if you get it wrong. Live streaming adds a layer of complexity.
Like an old camera, an old phone. Will work. Your cracked phone, if the crack doesn't go over the camera, the phones, the last couple of generations of phones have really good cameras, especially the ones that face you. It's the most used phone or most used camera. And so last time I went to it was just the Apple store or whatever, but I was like, hey, I want to have the main goal of the phone is to stream. So I'm really just looking for the best camera, and I'll take an Android. I was gonna not swallow my pride because I have no pride in Apple, but I was going to, against my better judgment, I was open to using an Android, and they were basically like, you just get one of the new iPhones. The camera facing you is a great fucking camera. So, okay.
Yeah.
Another thing that I could say, I might actually have to dip out. I'm not sure. But one thing I can say is like planning is of course important. But if you have a multi-camera setup for your first setup, I feel like that is almost like taking a jump, taking a huge leap when you're not necessarily creating that foundation. I would probably focus on one and then incorporate, because if you do have two cameras, you're going to need a switcher. You're going to need to have your mind there. If you have someone else operating is one thing, but if you want to really focus on your tattoo, a multi-camera setup might be kind of distracting.
For live streaming, for
At
sure.
first.
Now, if for live streaming, but if you're filming to post later, you can just film to both cameras, you know, and just clip it up later.
Good point.
One thing, the cheapest thing I would say, Adam, is look up magic arms. So, and there's a really nice one that Manfrotto makes that's over $100. That it's by far the best. But basically, it's an articulating arm with one control where it has like 5 pivot points, and you get it where you want it, and you tighten one knob and it tightens all 5 pivot points. And it has a clamp on one end, and you can hold cameras, phones, or anything on the other end. And you can basically just clamp it to either your light or whatever you have and just go straight over the top of your tattoo. That to me is the easiest way to set up, because you can just use your phone and whatever that articulating arm is. Like I said, I like the Manfrotto magic arm, but that you can get cheaper versions that aren't quite as nice for 30-40 bucks. The Manfrotto version's over 100, but well worth it. And then at least your head's out of the way. The problem I used to have, if you look at any of our older videos, is I'm constantly leaning in, dipping into tattoo, and my head's getting in the way of the camera when it's right over my shoulder. So by getting it over my head and straight down on the tattoo, I've solved that problem. But yeah, I'm with Lauren. I wouldn't even focus on the second camera to start. I would just get your camera in a good position. If you're tattooing, assumably you already have a decent lighting, but make sure you don't have a crazy glare, and your phone camera is fine to start, and just set it up and record. You can either time lapse record or just record regularly, and you probably can do your rough edits and apps on your phone and never even have to transfer it to your laptop.
Yeah. And if you're watching people zoom into the reinventing drawing groups or whatnot with 2 cameras, sometimes they have 1 camera on themselves and then one on their artwork that they're creating, which is definitely preferable than just having 1 camera on yourself. It's better to have just 1 camera on your art. Point is,
definitely.
They've gone through a fair amount of figuring out echo panic, right? Because when you have that second zoom device, it has to be like silent and no record, no audio, no mic. And you'd be surprised. Sometimes it's weird. Like on the second phone, it's almost impossible, if not impossible, to completely mute a Zoom call. It always goes out just a little bit, unless you have headphones plugged in. And therein lies, now we're talking headphones and all sorts of, to your point, Lauren, just we all have 1 camera right now. We could point this right at the artwork that we're creating. It would look great.
Yep.
Do that like 2 weeks in a row. It works like when we had the tattoo shop and we were streaming if people weren't tattooing, streaming tattooing, we were streaming art creation. And if it's interesting and looks good, it's like basically having an open front room on the internet. I'd stream 4 or 5 days a week if I were you.
You know what?
And Jake, you do stream 4 or 5 days a week, or a couple of, at least once a week, your tattoos.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we stream twice a month, but I film almost every tattoo just because I have the setup there permanently. 90% of them I never use. I've got hard drives full of tattoo footage that I've never done anything with. But one thing I've been playing with lately that I really have enjoyed, and if you go back and look at our last 3 minutes of better tattooing video that came out last week on choosing a color palette, I'll have one overhead shot, and then I shoot in 4K so that I can zoom way in and it's still super crisp. And then I'll just play with different types of transitions using the same piece of video. So Adam, if you have one piece of video, it simplifies things to the point where you can play with making that one shot interesting. So you can either zoom way in and then slow pan out, or you can start on one edge and then let it slow pan across, or just make hard cuts, like Gabe is doing right now. Just make hard cuts, or there's so many transition effects and stuff like that in Premiere that you can just drag and drop. And so you can take that one piece of footage and learn all of your transitions just using the single piece of footage, rather than trying to make, put 2 or 3 or 4 cameras together and do it. Then you get good at editing with minimal work. Yeah. So, wow. hopefully that helped. And to Amber's point, she as we were running our mouths, she said there are lots of YouTube videos that will explain different setups. Yeah, or you can listen to us, or you can go like watch people who really know what they're doing.
Find the experts that we're like trying to get info from.
Yeah,
it changes pretty quick too, or I guess it changes every 6 years. Like some of these older computers, I'm speccing out a streaming setup for a tattoo shop with old Thunderbolts. And I'm like, well, I know you can do it. And if you've got the equipment, then I should be able to come up with a solution. But for some reason, I had to buy a new Mac because there was one piece of software, that didn't quite work. But we're also doing, some more elaborate streaming setups and whatnot. Lauren's gone. We had the news item. I wonder if it's time to, is it almost, we should almost get to the point where we have our segments, but we have a news item to.
Do we? Okay, great. I think Lauren just had to grab a charger for her laptop. It was going dead. So she should be back. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's wait for her to come back to chat about it, I guess.
Well, all right. Well, I'll answer a question real quick while we're doing that. We had a question from Bianca. What would be the number one cause for tattoos when healing to be light? Then Rusty responded and said not stretching the skin or going deep enough. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's a number one cause for light tattoos. A lot of times, if it's not light because it's spotty and sketchy, because to Rusty's point, if it's not light because you didn't stretch the skin enough or because the pigment didn't make its way into the skin, another big reason is that you didn't push your contrast enough, in the tattoo whenever you put it in the skin. And that's the most common thing, in my opinion, with beginning tattooers or just beginning artists in general. They tend to stay in the midtones. They're afraid to go too dark or too light to push contrast because that reveals drawing weaknesses really, really quickly. If you don't understand how light reveals form, the last thing you want to do is be really bold and showing how light reveals form. So beginning artists, a lot of times will use midtones all the way through the tattoo in an effort to I hate to say fake it, but that's basically what they're doing. They're not confident enough to really push contrast, which is something you have to do for tattoos to work and live a long time in the skin. So, but that's there are tons of reasons. That's just a couple. The drawing, not pushing contrast enough, and then also technically not, to Rusty's point, not getting the ink in the skin. That does happen a lot with beginning tattooers. You should be able to tell the difference in those whenever it's healed. If it looks really spotty or scarred, or the skin's beat up once it's healed, that was a technical issue. If it looks like it healed smoothly but there's no contrast, then that's the issue that I described. So,
is there a matter of just like saturation of just not poking enough holes? Or?
Yeah. A lot of times, and as you get more and more tired throughout the day too, even I deal with this with longer tattoos. Towards the end of the day, I have to really focus on making sure that I'm keeping skin tight and paying attention to the saturation, 3, 4, 5 hours in, because your hands get tired, your shoulders get tired, your neck, and you just, stretching is something that you, as you get tired, that's kind of, to me, it's the first thing that goes away. The consistency of my hand movement goes away. I'll get faster and start to rush things. And then also the, keeping the skin taut and being and making sure that I'm getting the most bang for my buck by each pass, making good contact with the skin. It's just, it's just one of those things that it never goes away. You always have to keep that in mind as you do longer and longer sessions.
Sure. Do you ever swap out which side you set up on so that
my wife's been bringing that up to me. I don't. I'm set up the same way. I work from on the right side of my body, like my ink setups are over here, and I work like this. My buddy David, who tattoos with me, he always dips across his body, which always felt awkward to me. It's like all types of room for ink to drip across your lap, but he's always worked that way. I think it probably would make sense if I could easily change my setup. It would make sense to do that every month or two, just to
get the different.
Just to position yourself a little differently. We have a massage therapist that comes every month, and if you're a tattooer, make sure to invest in massages. But we have a massage therapist that comes to our house and sets up and does massages and like the mid side, like if you think about your mid back and your spine being here, the right side of my back, she has been working and thinking that it was just tight and knotted, but really she's come to the conclusion that that muscle is just way more developed than the same muscle on the left side of my spine because of the way that I work. And it's just that muscle is dense and thick and the other muscle isn't. And it's just kind of made me off kilter a little bit over the years.
I mean, it's advice not only for tattooers, but pretty much for anybody that does anything, for extended periods of time. And if you love to do stuff, then inevitably, my wife teaches infants, so she's carrying babies. So those shoulder muscles, same kind of thing, like they're just, 30 years of carrying, 4-pound, 5-pound people.
Yeah. 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 I know that way after, I know whenever Emily first had Max, for those first couple of years, and you're carrying him around on your hip all the time, like it just completely throws off your, or
like
your
painters
structure.
or anybody that's doing anything for more than 20 years, you have to really pay attention to not being repetitive.
Yeah. That's it's funny. Oh, go ahead.
Well, you want to wrap up the
Well, I was going to say it's something that was ignored. Like tattooers' health was ignored for most of my career. At least I never really heard anyone talk about it. And then Derb started doing his kind of longevity thing. Whenever he has like kind of nerve damage and stuff from leaning forward and wearing belts and stuff like that, and having big belt buckles that kind of pinched off his wallet
too.
His
the
wallet,
the
wallet, and right. And so he has a thing about that. And then I don't know if you noticed, we talked about it at Hell City, how forget the guy's name, but they were doing morning yoga for all the tattooers before Mark Longfellow. What's his name?
Mark Longnecker,
Longnecker, yeah. So it's funny how like that, how that's kind of come to the forefront as tattooers age and realize like, man, it's like I'm not that old, but I have lifelong. I'm only 46 years old, but I definitely have lifelong ailments that I know will follow me indefinitely because of, 26, 27 years of doing the exact same thing.
I'm not saying that we were, streaming yoga from the tattoo gathering, over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But I know that we recorded it.
Yeah. Well,
we've definitely done some streaming of it.
Yeah.
But no, and Durb, again, part of, I'm running with the Durb with events at the time, right? And I think that might have been for one of the conferences, or maybe one of the Dublin. We talked about this. So Durb came over to the Dublin, the Emerald Isle Tattoo Session.
Okay.
And that's where he met Savannah.
Oh, okay.
So we went up to the Martin put it together. Martin McIver puts together a couple shows over there. He's an amazing event producer. Oh my God, I think this ties into tattooing pretty well too. Martin's a like an event producer, but also like a trust fall coordinator. I don't even know what the fuck the name for that is, right? But like, he'll take like corporations and people through bonding exercises and that kind of stuff. Corporate bonding exercises. I know it sounds horrible, but it was like, oh man, we could do this for tattooers. And he's like, no way, mate. Tattooers is too cool for that. And I'm like, no, fuck it, we have to, man. That's what you're good at. So the first day was seminars and stuff, and the second day was everybody split up into teams. There was like, I don't know, 5 teams of 15 people, and everyone had to like, record the largest number of people you can get to do the wave.
Yeah.
So it's
with
like
tattooers. Yeah.
With tattooers. So it's like Nick Baxter and like, Jeff Gogwe and like, stuff. But, when everyone got back to the pub afterwards, it was a lot of fun. Everyone was laughing. I think they begrudgingly enjoyed themselves, although they adamantly deny it and they say they'll never do it again. But
yeah,
all of all those artists fucking loved it. It was the best thing since sliced bread, and they really, again, they made friendships that, they still, go to their tattoo shops and do all the different things and whatnot.
Yeah.
And there was no actual trust falls. There's no actual trust falls. But
next time it's got to be done with real trust falls, and every like 3rd or 4th person doesn't get caught.
We'll go with 3rd.
Third.
I'm just thinking of Hell City, but and personality types, like like whatever group is with Renee has to do it. She's just like, okay, everybody, we have this list of shit. We're gonna take it. No, come on, we're doing it. I'm like, no, can I go home?
Renee is a very special person. She was a lot of fun to hang out with and get to know a little bit.
Yeah. She's Renee Little is who we're talking about. If you guys don't know, and she's got she led a plein air painting workshop at the Paradise BYOB in Jiminy Peak last year, and then we saw her again in Hell City this past weekend or 2 weekends ago. Now, I guess, yeah, she's one of those people that as soon as you meet her, like within 10 minutes, you feel like you've known her, for 15 years. She's easy to get along with for sure.
She told me that there is the Villain Arts Tulsa convention this weekend, so she's the host shop for that. So she's really looking forward to it. I know that her shop, if you have any photos, Gabe, is beautiful, besides her paintings and stuff. But
I have seen.
That'll be a really good experience for anyone who's in the area or attending the show to see that.
Yeah.
This is a art night every. I think it's the last Monday. She hosts an art jam. So this is a replay that if you do a search for a paint night with Renee Little,
okay,
go through all the replays.
New faces on there for sure.
Yeah, that's cool.
So
what's
Lauren,
the news item?
So the news item was now this started, or it didn't start. One of those Wild West forums of Facebook. It's like a tattoo artist forum, right? And somebody posted something up about not tattooing somebody with HIV. And, as a older type, and again, I don't tattoo, but I own studios and people tattoo at, conventions. So I'm responsible for it. So I try to keep up on it. It was in my mind, I'm like, it's pretty clear cut. You have to tattoo everybody like they have a disease, and that's just the way it is. I don't see the black and white. Now I know that lots of times people are like, Gabe, there's shades of gray with shit. And I understand that there are shades of gray and there's no protection that's perfect. But on the other hand, the mentality of going into it, it seems like it's like, well, wait, if you don't even understand how you have to treat everybody like they have the disease, then I'm not like, how do you not understand? Like, I'm not even sure. It feels like to me, I don't understand something fundamental if that's the way reality is. Mm-hmm. And, I guess, and then there's, of course, the discriminatory parts of it that came up in the thread. And I guess, mostly, I don't know if it's worth, discussing ahead of time, but one of the news items that kind of came through recently was that there was a court case that was decided in Denver.
Lakewood, but Denver.
Or Lakewood, sorry.
Yep.
I just, where is it? U.S. Attorneys. Well, maybe it came out of District of Colorado. Oh, I guess the news thing here came out. Oh, I guess I might as well share it. I don't know what there's no way people could read it. But in short, it's clear in the law here. U.S. attorneys resolve complaints from a customer with HIV who was refused service by a tattoo artist. Okay, well, here we have a recent June 3rd court case. But yeah, so it was District of Colorado. Ultimately the individual who had HIV had asked for a tattoo. He claimed that after requesting the tattoo and disclosing his HIV status, he was refused service by a tattoo artist. He filed a complaint. Ultimately, the U.S. Attorney's Office then took steps to address the complaint to resolve the matter. Iconic, the tattoo shop, agreed to pay compulsory damages to the complaint, and then the tattoo artist also had to pay. They also, the shop had to agree to develop a non-discrimination policy, to train its employees on the policy, and then to cease asking potential clients about their HIV status. I guess. Yeah. So I guess ultimately this is one of those cases where it won, but yeah, I yield the floor.
I obviously you're right. You treat everyone like they have some type of infectious disease. That's why we take bloodborne pathogen courses and get certified every year to make sure that we are on top of any changes, and just mainly it's just reiterating what we've already learned every single year. It's not like that much seems to change, but I'll tell a quick story that changed the way that I tattoo. Probably in the mid 2000s, I'd say 2005, 2006, I had a client that came in. It was the first client that ever told me they were HIV positive and wanted to make sure that I was okay with it before I did the tattoo. And they were perfectly fine if I just said, no, I'm not comfortable with it. But I told them the same thing that you just said, like, I treat everyone that way. But I remember being more cautious, like being really deliberate that time about like when I would do things like back then. I don't do it anymore, but a common thing that tattooers do is we wrap a paper towel around our finger and we drag the machine backwards across it. So like after we rinse, so we tattoo, we rinse out our needles, and then we'll drag the machine backwards as it's running across the paper towel to pull any like ink that, or water or anything that's in the tube. And the handful of times that I have ever caught myself, like nicked myself, which has happened, happens to all of us, has been doing that, like, because you do it so often that it's second nature. It's like scratching your nose or whatever, and so you're talking to someone, you're not looking, and you come back and you jab yourself with a needle. And so I remember at that time when I was tattooing that guy being like, I'm not going to clean my needles that way, or I'm going to triple up my paper towels. And I remember being really careful. And then fast forward to probably about 3 years ago, I have a friend that is HIV positive that I started a full back piece on. This is the first person since that one back then that I've known for sure is HIV positive. And I was thinking about that, that paper towel thing. First off, it's a terrible idea because the paper towel can get caught up, little pieces of paper towel can get caught up in the needles anyways and restrict ink flow. It's not a good practice, but
there's no addition.
It doesn't make sense to do it, but we've all done it forever. And so I've went and I've changed it altogether. I found another solution. I use the Dip Cap as the brand that I use, but a few friends have told me you can use just makeup sponges as well. But instead of using paper towels to clean my needles, I clean my needles in the water, and then I use a sponge that's on my workstation, and I just run the needle in the sponge, and it does the same thing. So that's a better habit than that really doesn't have a whole lot to do with the HIV thing, but that was the catalyst for me, making a change that was an important change to make. Like I should have never been dragging paper, the needles across my finger, but I spent 20 years doing it probably,
Sure. Well, and one of the things that was brought up is just, if you think of it any different, like most people either don't know, and some people aren't going to tell you, so it's like to treat anybody any differently is really, like I said, it just seems, and I get it, especially the first couple of times, I guess, people have to, they encounter it, but
I'm sure I couldn't speak for the artist, but it seems like he was just weak-minded and not very courageous, or not very comfortable in his own setting, that it seems like it was kind of derived out of fear when it should have been approached with confidence rather than fear. But it seems like the artist himself or herself just probably took the client out of it and probably just freaked out, and that's pretty sad, but that's where I kind of see what happened there.
Yeah, that is sad. That is true.
One thing that's important to know is, where your exposure control plan is, right? So if people are like, well, if there's any sort of questions, the question shouldn't be like, should I even do this? The question should be like, do you know where your exposure control plan is? So that if you get a stick and poke, or if you poke yourself, you know where to go. You open it up, it says, accidents, accidental pokes, page 15. You go to page 15, it tells you what doctor to do, it tells you the procedure, whatever, soaking procedure, goes step by step. I definitely have, amongst all the different studios, worked with artists who knew, got poked by people they knew, had different, diseases. And thank goodness the shop had the exposure control plan right there, and they knew where it was. There's a lot of, probably along the same kind of, I don't want to say immature mentality, but the same kind of mentality, like, where's your exposure control plan? If you know how to deal with these issues and you have everything in place, you are actually safe. To your point, Lauren, like, you don't need to be afraid. You know your bloodborne pathogens, you put your proper precautions up, you treat everybody, like you don't want to pass anything that they may have to anybody else.
Yeah, it's not all about HIV. It's about standards in general. Like you said, you should be treating every person like HIV is one of many things that are contaminants, so it's a part of the job, and being comfortable and most of all confident, because the person who on the other end of the spectrum, they've already got this, they don't need to be judged by anyone else. It's an uncomfortable situation. I do feel really bad for that person. And the lawsuit is what it is, but it does bring to light for a lot of artists to kind of forget about those important things that, Jake, you came into it in the mid 2000s, and again, 15 years later, it's not very common. But everyone should be prepared and not make anyone feel bad like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's nuanced, right? It's like you have the right to refuse service to anybody for any reason, but you do not have the right to be discriminatory.
Yeah.
It's like, and some people need to figure that out.
That's a tricky rope to walk, huh?
But, I mean, kind of. I suppose,
I'm curious too if that was just
if they taught us about it in school, it might be a little easier.
I'm curious at what level this kind of got to, like situational, if this was something that was just between the artist and it was a problem, or if it kind of escalated into the shop owner.
I mean, it happens. I mean, my guess is that it happens once a day, probably in the States. Again, it came up a couple times in the, in the online forums and whatnot. I mean, everyone's got, not everyone, but it's hard not to have a tattoo shop for more than a couple of years without, some sort of story about this happening, because everyone's learning, right? Again, no one, pops out figuring this all out.
Yeah.
And then post tattoo, are there different types of, I'm just asking for your advice on here in this type of situation, but different type of post procedure handling?
For someone that has HIV, you're talking about from the artist standpoint?
HIV, from the client standpoint, you tattoo a client with HIV.
Yeah.
And then is that different now than before?
I've never heard it addressed as far as how they care for their tattoo with HIV compared to someone who's
like if
healthy.
They walk out of your shop, is Sanoderm or like a tattoo derm or a Tegaderm more common now for keeping?
I think that stuff's more common. Obviously it wasn't even around back then. So, but it's it's a lot more common now for people to use that. I still use plastic wrap, but I use plastic wrap, tape, and Coban, a lot of Coban on areas. And if I'm working on a back or a rib or whatever, I wrap their entire body with plastic wrap. I like Sanoderm and all of those derms for smaller one-shot tattoos, but I don't do those. So they're really a pain if you're working on a back piece or a bit, if you're covering this kind of chunk of skin. I just don't. I've tried to use the big rolls of them and they end up collapsing back on me. I'm sure I could get used to it, but I don't. And if I use the little ones that I can manage that are like 4x6 or whatever, I have to like stack them on top of each other. So I personally don't use Sanoderm. I still use plastic wrap and Coban, but then as far as the way that they care for it, I really don't know. That would be a great question. We should have a guest on sometime that could inform us on people who have like whether it's diseases or disorders, immune disorders, any number of things, and how they might care, what they might need to do that just someone who's healthy wouldn't need to do.
I think my guess is that they probably have a higher rate of actually listening and don't go home to sleep with their dogs.
yeah, that's probably true.
Like everyone kind of gets the same, right? To avoid infection, wash it and don't expose it to your pets.
Right.
And then not everyone, but then people come back 2 weeks later and are like, it's completely infected. Well, did you sleep with your dog? He's so cute.
You think that I've come into as like the ink manufacturing standpoint, we'll get very, very occasionally, it doesn't happen often at all, but we'll get an email from a client who saw that their artist was using a particular ink. And then we kind of identify what was going on, and you can see the type, they'll send photos, and then we kind of explain what's going on. They disappear or they'll ghost. If you ask a very particular question, well, did you do this? And I could tell based on this photo that you sent me that this is what happened. And that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to another best in practice point of just taking a photo of every single tattoo, every single one in progress ones, cataloging that so that, if 4 months, 6 months later, there's ever any questions, or 2 years later, 5 years later, you can always just kind of go back and find them.
Yeah.
I was talking to Conan Lee about that, actually, about how the Tattoo Release Forms app kind of documents what inks were used and all that kind of thing. Pretty interesting.
Yeah. One of the most common issues that I've had with people who have is with people who have like poor circulation. It's typically like heavier people, and when they get their like extremities tattooed, like ankles, wrists, mainly lower extremities like calves, having more of a difficult time healing. I've seen that consistently through my career as people who have poor circulation that don't heal particularly well or quickly at their extremities. And so I've always been whenever I do leg sleeves or something like that on someone who obviously a lot of times you can tell looking at their legs if they have circulation kind of problems, if they have a lot of like swelling and stuff like that, just in their ankles and feet and all that. And I intentionally like don't work the skin to the extreme. Doing big pieces, I get multiple passes, and I'll cover more area with less saturation on people like that, and do saturation over passes rather than working a concentrated area. It's because I've seen over the years so many people struggle to heal, and it may be, like I said, most of them are pretty heavy, so it could be that they're not able to like clean and lotion it as easily. Like getting down to their feet and lower legs is just a challenge for them. That might be a part of it too. I don't know, but I've seen that consistently for 20 plus years. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Well,
Yeah.
and I mean, to wrap it up, it's settled law now. Again, it's if you want to discriminate against people, then you know, it's just a matter of time before you get sued, and then comes out of people's pockets.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just be
Not only
safe.
was the artist,
be safe and do an awesome tattoo.
Right.
the artist and the shop were fined. I mean, it wasn't incredibly significant amount for the artist to pay, but
$4,400 for the shop. Fuck that shit, man. Because turn out somebody who wants a great tattoo, or at least a tattoo. That's a lot of money to pay to not tattoo somebody.
Yeah. That's
yeah.
sure.
It seemed like it was relatively small too. It wasn't like
I mean, I'm
wanted a
not
back
saying.
piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying I have no idea about the fairness of the penalties or whatever. It sounds it sounds fine and fair or whatever.
But yeah, I mean, it
like
is black and white. It's definitely black and white. I don't see room for gray area. That's my opinion. But treating everyone the same is very important. Yep,
I'm with you. I think you hit the nail on the head. It was more of a confidence issue on the with the artist. Maybe they were inexperienced, and or just don't trust their own kind of like protocols, their setup and breakdown routines, or whatever. That stuff shouldn't be so standard that
like come on. I mean, that's where sometimes it gets crazy, and when those kinds of weird defenses are coming out of what would normally be like the tough guy mentality, for lack of a better, more eloquent way to put it. It's like, are you kidding me? Like half the time you're like chest thumping, and now you're like, to your point, you're like out of fear, you just don't trust your own safety standards. It's like, come on, man. But then you don't want to cop to that and be like, no. I mean, actually, maybe. And again, I try to be as non-combative as possible when saying some of those things, but sometimes I fail. It's one of the places where I fail. Anyways, I got a boogie because I've got this.
Okay, well, we can.
Training.
I'm excited. I'm excited to hear about your training. I'm good to go on and wrap too. I did want to pitch for anyone who hasn't seen it. We haven't been putting out a lot of content on Fireside lately. I put out an episode last week, a 3 minutes to better tattooing episode that's 11 minutes long. That someone pointed out to me, like, only a tattooer would say watch this for 3 minutes, and then 11 minutes later start wrapping up. But
I'll be home in about a half an hour.
Right.
I'm just wrapping up.
7 days later.
Right. But yeah, it's about choosing a color palette, and I'd love for you guys to check it out and give me your feedback on it. I've got a few other tattoos that I've filmed that I think I can kind of show different ideas on this same subject. So if you guys like that, please let me know go watch the video and let me know in the comments.
Actually, real quick, I think I might have one more minute. Jake, maybe that other apprentice hopeful fella from Hell City, maybe he wants to deck out some of these YouTube videos here. Like, so for instance, when you say that, we could be like, click here, and then it would go to that video. Right. If you would be able to put in a little bit of time like that.
I'll bring it up to him. He's doing great so far. I've been we were lucky to come across him. He's engaged, and I'm sure he's going to find an apprenticeship soon. Anyone out there looking for a great apprentice, especially if you're in the Chicago area, let us know. I got a guy who.
Well, I'll keep my ears on the ground.
Yeah, guy who's hardworking and definitely dedicated, and would be a great apprentice for someone.
Yeah,
he's not close enough to me. So
it seems like he's the type of guy. I don't know if I experienced this, but like when he hears a piece of good advice, he actually doesn't. He's not defensive about it. He actually does it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Whatever it was, I was like, wait a minute, did we just talk about that like fucking 2.5 minutes ago? Now you're okay.
I love people like that. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Next week, episode number 36. And I'll have some footage from the Indie Tattoo Expo. I know Gabe is going to Tampa. So yeah, stay tuned.
Sweet.
Gonna go
You
to the
guys have a
Dolly
good week.
Museum.